Massachusetts. So I do ask that folks that if you would mute yourself until you need to speak, that would be helpful. And when you do need to speak, we will do our best if you do the hand raise function on Zoom to see you. If it looks like we don't see you, then please let us know that you're interested in commenting. Comments will be done per agenda item. So the first agenda item is a site plan review of a garage at 33 Walpole Street. And I understand we have, let's see, the Littles here. Is that correct? Yep, there you go. You can go off mute. Stephen and Patty. Okay, thank you. And
yes, we're here.
Okay,
great. Well, welcome to the planning board. And
thank you. Nice to meet you.
And Tony.
Yes, hi everyone. I'm Tony Rosine. I'm the architect for the project.
Okay, nice to meet you in person, given all the interactions we've had.
Yes, you as well. Thank you.
Anybody else here for you? Is Charles Howard here?
I don't think he's going to be on here tonight.
Okay, no problem. So what we normally do with a site plan review is to allow the applicant to go through the plans with us. And we can either share our town planner can either share the screen with the various documents that you've sent in, or you could do the same yourself.
Sure, I'm happy to do that.
Okay. Jasmine, have you given Tony
Yes, all set.
screen share? Okay, very good.
Okay, let me just make sure I've got. Give me 1 second. There we go. Okay, should be able to see the site plan.
Here we go. Yep, thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
So 33 Walpole, the house is accessed through a fairly narrow driveway.
Can you just zoom in just a bit, please?
Sure, I will in just a second. Yep. Just trying to sort of show the sort of the macro level view of where the house is, which is basically that it's set back from the street quite a ways. And it's accessed between the two neighboring properties from the street. So if I zoom in, does this help?
Yes, thanks.
Okay, so this is their current driveway right now that comes between the two other properties, and then to the left is their existing home, and to the right there are two garages that are separated here that are pretty old and in need of coming down. So that's the whole idea behind this project, is to take these two garages down and build a new garage that has the same detailing as the existing house that's there now, which I can share a picture. I know I sent one along, but I could also put that up as well. So the garage more or less located straight across from the house. So as they pull in, the house and the garage more or less are at a high point. And because of the way that the topography works, as you come up the driveway, it actually goes up in elevation. So this is a little bit of a high point here, but it's also there's a lot of well-developed mature trees that surround the property, the existing house and the garage location here. So from the street, if you could see the new garage, you'd be looking at the right side of it here. We've also positioned it not only to be straight across from the house, but it's also just over 40 feet from the rear property line of the house that's adjacent. So it's a fair distance back there. So if I jump to, can you see the drawings here? Okay, so this is the front of the garage. It's a 3-car garage that allowed them to actually fit cars into it because the two that are there are old enough that cars these days don't fit inside there. They also have some equipment that they use to maintain the property that they would like to be able to store inside here, as well as the left side here, which is the furthest from the street, is going to be an area that they can use to keep their gardening supplies, do their potting indoors, and then be able to take things outside, which Patty likes to do. So see if I can just move over to. So this would be the street side view if you could see from there. But again, it's set back quite a ways and there's enough trees that it's really not all that visible from the street. But it's set up with the same gable ends, the shed dormers, and the details are set up to match what the existing house has. The left side, we jump to the left side. There's an entrance here for the potting shed area. It's also a man door into the garage as opposed to the garage doors themselves. They are not seeking to get approval for the accessory dwelling unit at this point, but we are sort of set up to go for that in the future, which is why there's a pair of doors up here with access to a deck that would overlook the property away from the street. And the rear elevation is just fairly simple. There's another man door here to access a rear stair that's inside the garage to get to the second floor.
So Tony, is that, it's just Susie for a second, just go back to the other.
Yep.
rear.
The rear.
Is that the access, if it were to become an ADU, is that the access?
That is one point. Yeah, if I jump to the floor plan here real quick, if I can. Sorry, it was way zoomed out. So that door is this door back here in the right. That goes up. You can also get into that stairwell from inside the garage if you needed to. And then on the left-hand side, this is the other door to the shed, the potting shed area. And then at this point, the second floor is just one wide open space it's unfinished, would just be used for storage at this point. Anybody like to see anything else on this?
Perhaps you could just show one of those pictures.
Yeah, let me see here.
Okay.
As soon as I said it, I wondered if I had saved them in the right place. Here we go. So this would be the view from the front of the garage where the garage doors are located straight across. And on the back right-hand side here is their primary entrance that they use that goes into the mudroom and the kitchen area of the home. You can see the left-hand side of this picture is the front, quote unquote, the front of the house. And you can see the trees that are here and how mature they are. So that's actually what's between them and the street, which is another couple hundred feet away, as well as a house in between. So, when they drive in, this is their current parking area. And so this garage is positioned straight across from the house.
Great, thank you. Do we have any abutters here tonight? 33 Walpole?
I don't believe so.
No,
No, okay. In that case, I'll open up.
Actually,
Carol,
I'm-
could you ask for who KL is?
Is somebody on who shows up as KL? Would you like to identify yourself, please?
You're muted.
Well, okay, hopefully we'll get to, for that person to do that. Meanwhile, I'd like to go on, John.
I've received a notice. I'm 2 lots away at 35 Walpole Street. So I just wanted to let you know that I'm technically in a butter. Well, I guess
Okay.
It's true.
technically
Yeah,
in
that is.
certain ways. And I was curious, I from what I've just seen, I don't have an objection. I was surprised because I got a notice because do garages require site plan review?
Yes, they do, if they're a separate structure.
Really? I was not aware of that.
Yes.
Of all
we do.
after all these years.
Yeah,
So
we do
barns-
a lot of barns, sports barns, regular barns,
Mhm.
separate garages, pools, cabana houses.
Mhm.
Mm.
So what, as an abutter, which I can't see Stephen's house from me because of the trees. And when I walk by the end of the driveway, I don't see it either. So, and I built the house right next to it between Stephen and myself. So I have no objections from what I've seen.
Great.
So I'll just let you know.
Okay, thanks, John, appreciate it. So
Thank you, Jeff.
I'll open it up to discussion from the planning board members. Does anybody have any other questions?
Yeah, Carol, can you hear me?
Hi,
Hi,
Scott.
I'm Scott. I actually live on Breton Road, right across the street from you all. I had a question, a simple one. How long is the driveway? How far setback are you? Your architect may have said it. I apologize if I missed it.
Do you have,
It's
Sorry,
over
I was
200
muted.
feet, is it not? I think it's over 200 feet, basically.
Is it the 250, 260? Is it those numbers?
Oh,
on the
easily.
plan?
Yes,
That's just the length of the property line for that particular property. So it's 260 on the right-hand side of the driveway plus another 40 feet. So it's almost 300 feet from the street.
Okay, so is any of this visible, technically visible from Walpole? Just
No.
out of curiosity?
You can't see my house, so you can't see my garages at all. Even in the wintertime, you'd have a tough time seeing.
I didn't think so. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other planning board members? Comments, questions?
I have a
Well-
question. So, and I apologize if I missed this. When you build the garage, will you be removing any of the trees that provides the buffer right now?
No,
No,
we won't need to. We're far enough back into the area where the current garages are. And that's really important too, because it's buffer for both, both people.
Thank you.
Okay, Jazz, any other questions from the planning board members? No?
I have a
Okay.
question about the height of the building. I'm sorry, I'm sure this is in the plans, the existing building's height versus the proposed.
That's a good question. I'm sorry, I can't tell you what the existing buildings are. They're a one-story structure, I can tell you that. The proposed garage, the highest point is 28 feet. And that's the ridge of the gable. Let's see here. And I guess I'm not sharing anymore.
George, is your
But-
question the height of the existing garages or the existing primary residence?
The garages. Just wondering sightline difference, but given the length of the driveway and the trees, it probably doesn't make a difference, but it's just something worth asking.
again, you still won't be able to see.
Yeah.
I guarantee if you drove by my
no,
house right
they're tall
now,
trees. They're-
you will not be able
yeah.
to see my house or my garages.
Okay.
Okay, anything else? So I turn our attention then to the preliminary site plan review approval decision that was written by Jasmine. Jasmine, if you'd like to pull that up, please, our town planner. Could you very, very quickly go through this?
Absolutely. So I would just like to drive their attention to a quick change. The applicant had previously been listed wrong, and I've just adjusted it to the correct applicant, who is Stephen Little. So essentially, we review the application for the removal of 2 separate garages with the construction of a new garage. The area will be in an already area cleared of trees and the impact on the surrounding area will be minimal. The findings are that the application complies with the dimensional requirements for the accessory structure. It's well below the lot percentage coverage requirements. The existing driveway will not be disturbed by the proposed work as it's already in existence and will not be extended any further. The existing parking is adequate to serve single family use. The siding and details are in kind with the existing structure and the neighborhood. It's unlikely this additional structure will have detrimental impact on the surrounding premises, and it's consistent with the neighborhood and applies to the building code requirements. It's designed consistent with the character of the neighborhood and the existing structures and has no impact on open space or natural landscape. And it's replacing 2 existing garages, so will have minimal impact on previously undisturbed areas of the property. It does not impact town resources as it's an accessory structure, not a primary structure at this point. The proposed structure does appear to be consistent in quality and appearance to the existing house, and it complies with the requirements of the zoning bylaws. Saying all that, we have a few recommended conditions. The 2 of them are standard conditions prior to the issuance of a building permit. Minor modifications may be approved by the planning board chair. Any future modifications to the site should be reviewed and approved by the planning board. And finally, the proposed garage at one point in the future may become a detached accessory dwelling unit. It was recommended by the building commissioner that they apply for that application in a separate process. And that will include the site plan review from planning board as submitting an application for a special permit to the zoning board of appeals. And the planning board will submit a written report based on the results of the site plan review to the zoning board of appeals at that time.
Okay, thank you very much. Planning board, any questions to Jasmine?
None, thanks, Jasmine.
Okay, so I don't see any comments, so I am going to make a motion on the decision, and then we will take a vote. So I make a motion that we approve the application with the following conditions. After considering the application and other materials submitted at its meeting of October 16th, 2023, the board approved the plans entitled Little Residence, 33 Walpole Street, with the following conditions. 1, prior to the issuance of a building permit, minor modifications to the site plan may be approved administratively by the planning board chair. 2, any future modifications to the site shall be reviewed and approved by the planning board. 3, the proposed garage may at a future time become a detached accessory dwelling unit. It was recommended by the building inspector, please make that change, Jasmine, that the applicant apply for the accessory dwelling unit under a separate application from the construction of the garage. If the applicant elects to construct a detached accessory dwelling unit, an application for site plan review shall be submitted to the planning board at least 10 days prior to submitting an application for a special permit to the zoning board of appeals. The zoning board of appeals shall receive a copy of the site plan review application. The planning board shall submit a written report based on the results of this site review to the zoning board of appeals prior to the public hearing. The report of the planning board shall include any recommended conditions for a special permit related to the site plan review. So we will now take a roll call vote. Jody Shu,
Approve.
George Sidgwick,
Yes.
Scott Friedman,
Yes.
and Carol has been yes. So this is approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we will have this this decision signed and ready for pickup and dispersal later this week, in a couple of days.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you very
Okay.
much.
That's great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Really appreciate all your help.
So I must say to the Littles, you have a very responsive and fascinatingly responsive architect.
Yes.
Well, Carol, thank you.
I-
Tony was an absolute pleasure to work with.
I got to say one thing. My dad was on the planning board, and he and Phil Latarzi basically started building the town of Dover many, many, many years ago. And you probably know my father. You know Phil Latarzi.
Yep.
And they basically started this town.
A lot of history.
I'd say absolutely. Oh, that's great. I love that.
But thank you, all of you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Tony.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you guys. Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Okay,
So
So,
Bill's on now too.
oh, okay. Hi, Bill.
Hi, guys.
Okay. We do not have the minutes of October 2nd, which is the next agenda item, ready for approval. So we will move that to our next meeting on October 30th. And our next agenda item is review of fiscal year 24 initiatives, so I will be turning this over to Jasmine in just a second. But I do want to make sure that we know everybody that has signed on here. So, Cheryl McDonald,
Yep, I'm here.
great, hi,
Tisdale.
for Tisdale, okay, very good, thank you. And let's see, we have Summer. Whoever's showing up as Summer. Sean, we have someone showing up as Sean.
Yes, hi, this is Sean Whalen. I live on Schaffner Lane. I was just here to comment if the Red Robin Phase 2 is coming up.
Okay,
I don't know if it is.
yes, it will, and we'll give you an opportunity then. Thank you, Sean.
Carol,
So-
I know Summer hasn't, but she's my neighbor also on Tisdale.
Okay, so, what is her full name?
I do not know, but I can look it up for you later.
Okay, great. If you could get that to Sue, that would be great. Thank you. To Sue Hall. And Norma Sullivan, I believe you're at Tisdale as well, at County Court as well. You're muting.
One Tisdale Drive.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
And
Okay,
Carol, there's two of us on with me, another resident, Linda Avedikian.
Hi, Linda Avedikian, 78 Tisdale.
okay. So you got all this written down?
Yep.
Okay, great. Okay, well, thank you, everybody. So I'm going to turn this over to our town planner, Jasmine, and she's going to go through the various priorities and initiatives that we're looking at every meeting. And we'll give you the opportunity, that knowing that there's so many folks here from County Court, when we get to that, we will make sure to give you the opportunity to share your thoughts. Okay. It's all yours, Jasmine.
Thank you so much, Carol. Helps if I unmute myself. So I just wanted to share this with the board. This is something that Carol and I had discussed, and she's already seen this. So I think this is a really good way of keeping track of our initiatives moving forward. I think this is something that the Board of Selectmen uses. Mona uses this form, I believe. It's just very, very helpful to make sure that nothing falls through the cracks, that we don't lose track of deadlines, since things are often coming so far away, months out in advance for us. So if anybody has any recommendations for this, I'm welcome and open to any suggestions. So we broke it down into a few groups. We have housing, technology and communication, town meeting, bylaw changes, and open space, and grants, and other, sorry. So I'm just going to go through these by these respective sections. So as far as housing, implementing the housing production plan is a focus area of ours. Part of that is collaborating with the new housing task force that's going to meet for the first time this Wednesday on October 18th at 3 p.m. There we'll be establishing key initiatives and takeaways and presentations to for the task force to converse and implement. I will have some presentation on what I've taken out of the housing production plan for the housing task force on the 18th.
May I just for a sec?
Absolutely, please do.
So just to remind everybody, so Jody and I will be representing the planning board, as well as Jasmine, of course, on the housing task force. The task force will have two goals. There's a short-term goal, which is to formalize a process to ensure that the town puts its best foot forward when it receives notice from Mass Housing that there's a 40B application in the works. And of course, we're using what we've done over the last 3 weeks or so with Red Robin 2 to formalize that. And that'll be the first thing. The second, of course, is to start to really discuss philosophically what kind of housing we should have in town and how we go about it. Thank you. Thank you, Jasmine.
Thank you, Carol. I appreciate that. And as far as our 40Bs go, the Trout Brook has obviously been continued until the November 2nd hearing. The Tisdale subdivision off Tisdale Drive was held, the Conservation Commission held a hearing on that on October 12th. And as far as the next steps for that, the town administrator is currently in possession of drafts from appropriate boards and committees of the town who wish to make comments for the Tisdale 40B PAL application. And he is working with town council, he being Mike Blanchard, sorry, is working with town council to draft a formal response to mass housing, very similar in the way that other communities have done. So that way we have one formalized, unified response rather than a cover letter with each board's attached response as it has been previously done. So he'll hope to get that to us within the next week or two. He said he would send that to us for review before it gets sent out. We only have a few more days left in the calendar, so to get that out. So hopefully we'll see that early this week. Do you have anything to add on that, Carol?
No, I think that's about it, other than the fact that that the selectman's office has received a significant number of written responses, not only from other relevant boards and committees and departments in town, but also from residents of county court. So at this point, why don't I take the opportunity to open this up for any comments for those residents of county court that are here tonight. If you'd like to say something, we would certainly appreciate your input.
So I'm Norma Sullivan, and I'm going to start.
Okay.
Okay, so there's a lot of issues that this development presents, and it's not that we have anything against 40Bs, but there's a lot of issues. For example, the water is going to come from Aquarian. The other Red Robin that's being built on 109 is using Aquarian water. And this Tisdale LLC, I guess that's the name of it, is also using Aquarian water. Now, my water is brown. So the other two places, well, the one on 109, Red Robin, I mean, there's nobody that lives there. And then the other one hasn't even been started. And already, I mean, our water is very poor. It's brown. It's not the way it should be. And I can't imagine that building, once the Red Robin is inhabited and the other one is being built, that our water is going to be even better. And I know water is a big issue. So there's the lack of water pressure, days of having no water at all. So it's a major point. Road safety and traffic. So adults and children safely walk, ride bikes, and play on Tisdale Drive. This will change dramatically once an excess of 100 cars are added to our street. Parking, 42 units equals 66 parking spaces. Where do their guests park? Where do they park when it snows? Given the magnitude of building, there will not be an adequate area designed for children to play. Our concern is that these children will be gravitating to our play structures and our tennis courts, which opens us up to lawsuits, and someone could get hurt. Snow removal, residents of County Court have been parking their cars along the street during major snowstorms, which gives our snow removal companies easy to access our driveways. This will change once the development is constructed. It just, I mean, I wish that you would see how Red Robin, once people live there, and to see what kind of stress it puts on traffic, stress it puts on the water before this other one is considered. I know 40Bs are important in Dover. If we're a 40B, if Red Robin's a 40B, this Tisdale LLC will be a 40B. Once that Tisdale LLC is a 40B, it's going to diminish the value of County Court's property. So I think, and I said in one of my letters, I think it's hypocritical that you build this one 40B, and then what happens so that people can move into Dover that can't afford buying a house in Dover, but then it also has a major negative impact on where we live in County Court. So, I mean, those are some of the things I wish that you would see how Red Robin works before you start building County Court, Tisdale LLC. Is there anyone else from Tisdale Drive that would like to comment? Nobody else?
Well, there's somebody.
Yes, please.
Okay, and your name, please?
Taryn Burke.
Okay.
I agree full-heartedly with every point that Ms. Sullivan just brought up and brought to your attention. And I'm familiar with the letters that I think. I spent some time speaking to some people at Town Hall today, but it was because of my concerns about the ethics of this builder. You know, if anything is a fact, I know full source from engineers at Aquarian. Ms. Sullivan brought up the water issue. As of right now, Aquarian will tell you they can't take care of providing water for this many units. And they already can say that, which then brings a concern to know how the politics of these developers and how they can backdoor things. Because if you look at like Chicory Creek, for instance, like they can't get on a water source. So they originally said they had to, the Red Robin developer, use our entrance because they couldn't bother the wetlands that are behind where Red Robin is being built. And what I find ironic, though, is once they find out they can't use Aquarian water, well, then they say, can we use the wetlands? But the main thing here is I feel like, I know Norma said hypocritical, but like everything we believed in buying here to be part of a beautiful community like Dover and what everyone equitably should be attaining, which is why 40B has moved out to the suburbs. Because for years they were finding they were just building ghetto onto ghetto and 40B on 40B and then oppressing certain socioeconomic and demographics. And that historically is why they kind of changed the whole process, which seems ironic that the one little niche Dover would find, especially after spending some time reviewing the 2021 Dover MassGov documents that you wrote the state over your expectations of your quotas, is that like you would actually want to put it somewhere that only then like almost like instigates the problem more again. I don't know who my 40B neighbors are. And that's why we live great as a community. Once you build these renting units that are going to change the demographic and the beauty and the peace that people have been able for all these years at County Court apparently to live within, you're going to cause everything that Ms. Sullivan added up, I mean, to say for people, but it also a stereotype, which I thought was what the whole idea of this was to be getting away from. Then we'll just be the bubble of like the poor community of Dover, where you have people, hardworking people who, you know, bought at market value. But the bigger concern to me, though, is that I found out twice, two of the occasions this summer that affected 600 unit owners here was the developer's supposed excavator or contractor actually illegally and unlawfully touching the water mains and all of our water sources where we didn't have water. And then even more brown water was coming through. And if it hadn't been caught, it would have destroyed the $15,000 water filtration system we put in our home to that needs to be bypassed anytime the water company does work. And these developers, whether it was his subcontractor or whether it was the developer, I was told that this was reported to the town and the state for their illegal activity. And I don't know if that's true or if it's not true, but I know that I was told that by engineers from Aquarian and that they don't, and that's kind of concerning to know that they would have that much disregard to the community and whatever they're doing in their build outs before they come here and start building. And like I said, I'm totally pro 40B. I mean, maybe that development, even if we had to see it, but it had a different entrance, but it's more, for me at least, has a lot more to do with the ethical concerns, because once it's built, the town doesn't have very much control over it anymore. And, you know, you don't know who, these aren't people invested who are going to be owning in 40B. They're going to be renting.
That's a good point. Thank you. Thank you, Taryn. Anybody else from County Court?
I'd like to, this is Sean Whalen at Schaffner, technically in a butter according to the map back in the woods there where it meets up. The water issue affects more than Tisdale in that the Draper Wells, which serve a large southern portion of Dover, and the interplay of the various wells in the center at Knollwood and in the center. I'm sure you've all seen Aquarion's map. You know, as they shift and turn off and on and redirect water, you know, we have discolored water. Draper, many neighborhoods have discolored water. So that, you know, if this is an issue that Aquarion says right now we can't handle, you know, Dover is aware of this. You know, the developers can somehow dance around and elude, you know, any measures that the town or the state takes. It puts Aquarion and Dover and Red Robin, you know, legally liable. I mean, I could envision a class action lawsuit 3 years from now when the water doesn't work, pointing back to the records of it was explained up front here that Aquarion can't handle it. I mean, this is fraught with legalities, and the more people in Dover who become aware of this, you know, there will be a major complaints, you know, beyond Tisdale, and what, you know, their various and issues are with it as well, which are all valid. So I can't see how, you know, when I joined this meeting earlier and, you know, a grilling of someone who wants to change their garage that no one will ever see, and then we have this huge impact that it's going to ruin a neighborhood. And it seems to be proceeding along, you know, just like phase one did. And, you know, how are they addressing, did they ever have tanks on top of phase one?
So Sean, let me just ask if anybody else wants to speak, and then I'm going to address a whole bunch of things that you all brought up, and I really appreciated your comments. Does anybody else want to speak from County Court?
Hi, Carol. Maggie Sharon, 18 Tisdale.
Yep.
I will be brief because I think that Ms. Sullivan and Taryn Burke really said everything that I have to say. You know, we've lived here for 6 months, but been residents of Dover for 15 years before that. And, you know, what concerns me most is just the density and the type of housing that is being proposed for that lot. I think that had a 40B developer come forward with a townhouse proposal, perhaps a proposal with first floor bathrooms and more accessible community for the elderly, I would be enthusiastically supporting such a thing. I think that creating a large scale development that is dense, that is inviting families with 8 3-bedroom units, but then giving the children who would ostensibly live there 0 places to play outside their home is irresponsible and is not a fair invitation to people who might want to rent those apartments and then have nowhere to go outside their house with their families. So I think that it's an ethical proposal in its density and in the amount of apartments being proposed on the space that it allows to have. And I just, you know, walk down Tisdale Drive on a sunny day at 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and you will see 15, 20 little children who live in our townhouses for whom the dead end street is their recreational place. Now, should kids play in the street? Perhaps no, but you give some stuff up when you live in a townhouse with your family. And for us, that dead end road has been a source of our community, of lots of places for young kids to play. All of that ends when a multi-dense unit, rental unit comes in. We'll have Amazon, we'll have all the cars. I mean, I don't need to reiterate. I am very concerned that we are concentrating all of our affordable housing in this 1 square mile. And specifically, right now, Tisdale Drive and County Court hosts 70% of your available housing, affordable housing in this community, 17 units out of the 24 that you have totally. And you are, in approving this, not you per se, but the town or the state, is really cannibalizing this neighborhood in order to get to a larger amount of affordable housing units. And that's very unfortunate, and I think not fair to the folks who call this neighborhood home.
Thank you, Maggie. Anybody else?
Put it on.
Cheryl?
Hi there. If I could figure out how to, you could see us too. Sorry about that. Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate, I've been in Dover since 2000 and only moved to Tisdale when my kids went to college. And so I used it as an opportunity to kind of simplify and get rid of, all of the responsibilities of home ownership. And so for me personally, to give up, a great value of my home and acreage on Pine Street to come over here and now I feel very, very uncertain about the value of my home now. And I'm not at an age where I can really recover quickly, right? So I've been in Dover for so long. I love this community, but I do think it will force myself and a lot of others out of here sooner rather than later. And I think it's heartbreaking to have raised my kids here and not be able to stay.
Carol, this is Linda Abedikian. I'm sitting here next to Cheryl, number 78. So my question to the planning board is, Taryn brought up a point earlier that said that the town and the state could possibly be aware of the circumstances that happened last month when our water was in fact shut off. Did the town know that our water was shut off?
Okay, so
because there's no construction there now, so clearly something's going on, because we see that there's no movement, there's no cars, there's no trucks, there's no workers, there's nothing.
Okay, Cheryl, I'll get to that in a second as well. Any other comments or questions? First of all, I commend all of you for coming to this planning board meeting tonight, and I will explain what the law is, what the process is, what the town with the capital T is doing, and what the planning board has done specifically. I will tell you that we have sent a 3-page memo to the town administrator, who is accumulating all the input, and I know that some of you have responded directly to him as well. And town council will be working on putting together a very detailed and comprehensive response to mass housing, as Jasmine mentioned earlier. The planning board is aware of basically everything that you've brought up, and we've addressed every one of these items, sometimes with a little bit more detail, with some research that we've done, and I know that others feel the same way. The specific area, Linda, about the water this summer, I don't know about. We don't get involved with water issues, but I will make sure tomorrow morning to talk to Mike Blanchett, our town administrator, to make sure that he's aware of that and can look into that as they develop the response for the town. So the process is that we as a town don't have any proactive way at this point of saying no to a 40B developer. A 40B developer goes to mass housing first. They cobble together some property. They do their research, they do their plans, and they send us a note from mass housing saying a developer has submitted a 40B housing proposal to Dover. You have 30 days to respond. That's what the state law and the state process is. So we being the town, asked for an extension of that, and we have until October 27th to respond, and we will be doing that. I am positive, in a very professional, comprehensive way, and I can assure you that every issue that you brought up tonight is already in that draft memo. So really appreciate that. Once that's done, mass housing will make a determination And if they approve it, then the developer and our zoning board of appeals works on putting together what's called a comprehensive permit. And if you go to the zoning board of appeals webpage on the doverma.org website, you will find a presentation that was given by a housing consultant a year or two ago, maybe longer, on what the 40B process is, because it's a very prescribed process, and it's just a good educational tool to give you a sense of the lay of the land and how our hands might be tied. The comprehensive permit is done as basically a negotiation, and the ZBA will get additional input again from the planning board in a more specific way, more like the site plan review that you saw us do with the garage tonight, and more input from Board of Health relative to water and septic, and more in this case, a lot more information from the Conservation Commission because of all the wetlands that are in the back there. And from our town engineer and our building inspector and from residents. This is all done in public meetings. And we'll get to a point, we being the town of Dover, where the ZBA chooses either to reject the permit or come up with a permit that they think represents a decent compromise on all the issues. So that's the process. And there's, I think it's 6 months that you have to for the town to get this resolved. That's all assuming that Mass Housing, after our letter, allows the developer to proceed. So that will be the big next step. There will be a web page on the Dover website with all the application material, as well as the formal letter that the town of Dover sends to Mass Housing. So we are all committed to making sure that you are all involved, that everything is transparent, and that your input is valued and conveyed to the state. And I can't personally, I'm not speaking as chair of the planning board, personally, I can't agree with I can't disagree with anything you've said. This is just an appalling plan and site to do this. But we have to go through the state process, and I just urge you all to be very attentive and make sure that you attend whatever subsequent meetings come up, depending on how Mass Housing chooses to proceed. Are there any questions on the process?
So I have a question. So Linda again from 78. So our water situation is pretty bad right now. Is there a possibility that the state could look at that and say, you know what, this is a no-go because water obviously is a big issue. There's no other source to get the water from.
So the memo that will be going to Mass Housing will talk about water significantly. The fact that it's Aquarian, the fact that no one knows yet what the impact of Red Robin is going to be on Aquarian's ability to provide the quantity and the quality of water that one would expect. And we've asked for or at least the planning board has asked for a review of Aquarian's permit and their usage. So yes, it will be addressed by Dover in depth. You know, I think the frustrating part is that Mass Housing has one job, and that's to approve housing.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Right.
you know,
Yeah, we
there's
understand that. But
also all we can do is say, here are all the issues.
Right.
And, you know, and we have peeled back the onion to look at all the stuff and all these major issues. So
Yeah.
we will be providing the state with a very comprehensive and detailed package of information to explain all the issues that we have with Tisdale too.
Is it a possibility to see what happens with Red Robin once people are living there? Before?
Yeah, Norma, so one of the things that will be mentioned in the memo is that because of the impact of Red Robin on safety, on traffic, on water,
right,
that that we think that, I'm not sure exactly how it's going to be phrased. The planning board suggested that it be phrased in such a way that at a minimum, this whole project be delayed until the impact of Red Robin can be assessed.
Great. And then, nobody is saying that they're against 40Bs. We're not. We live in a 40B community, but maybe they could reevaluate how many units they're putting in and make it smaller and more reasonable if the Red Robin proves to be not a problem with our water and traffic and safety and all that other stuff.
Yep, no, absolutely. And the process sort of works that way. If mass housing permits this development to go forward, regardless of our comprehensive package of information,
Right.
Then the Zoning Board of Appeals gets involved with the developer in negotiating. And Zoning Board of Appeals throughout the state and even around some of our communities here have been successful in getting significant changes to that initial development plan.
So, and Tisdale Drive is not, it's a narrow road. So, I know we've talked to Walter Avalon, or some of the people here have, Linda has.
Yeah.
And he's not, the town will not widen that road. If the builder wants to, it's up to him.
Well, it's not up to him because the builder doesn't own the road. So the road actually is a interesting situation right now.
Yes, it is.
We're not sure that the road has been accepted by the town of Dover and should be viewed as a public way owned by Dover.
Okay.
So does that mean that Tisdale Drive still owns it?
We're not sure. We're not sure. So it's being looked into. That too is being looked into.
May I just say that was something I had thought as well, that it was a private way. But when you, Ms. Lisbon brought up, I would say for anyone who lives in Tisdale, I think this is what you were pointing the direction of all of us to, was the housing production plan that you all so thoughtfully made in 2021, which it's housing production plan prepared by Town of Dover Planning Board, Roberta Cameron, Courtney Starling, December 16th.
The housing production plan, that's not what I was referring to, but the housing production plan is a document that every city and town in Massachusetts really needs to do. And it provides the information that the state needs to address in general the approach that a town is taking to the issue of housing. Because the state has now litigated, there are legal requirements that towns have now, whether it's 40B at 10% of the housing units, or the MBTA Communities Act, which Dover also has to be addressing. What I was referring, and so there is information there that can inform you about how Dover is addressing our legal requirements to meet the housing needs. But what I was talking to, I'm just pulling up the website here. If you go to the Board of Appeals, you will see on the very top line, Board of Appeals, Affordable Housing Workshop, March 24th, 2021. And that's the Chapter 40B workshop slides. So the whole PowerPoint deck is there. That gives you the background to the law and the state process for 40Bs.
Carol, it might be a good idea to add that to the chat if you have it handy.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just disconnected it. Okay.
I'll do it, Carol. I've got it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Carol, I think Cheryl had a question.
I just had a quick question about our representative Denise. Should we be, lobbying with her? I mean, she certainly has been involved in our water issues. Can she have any influence one way or the other?
That's a good question, because I missed her fundraiser tonight that I was going to go to. She's a great rep for us, and she's done wonderful things for the town of Dover, and has been very supportive. The problem that Dover has right now is that we have 2.82% of our housing as 40B versus the 10% that are required. In addition, there's something in Mass General Law that's known as the Dover Amendment. I don't know if any of you have heard about it.
No.
Okay, so I can't remember exactly which section of the law it is, Mass General Law section something or other, but it's called the Dover Amendment. And the reason it's called the Dover Amendment because excuse me, back in the 1960s, I believe the Catholic Archdiocese wanted to build a Catholic church in Dover, And Dover tried to prevent it through their zoning bylaws. And it went through the court system and the land use system and up to Beacon Hill. And what was added to the Mass General Law was something called the Dover Amendment, which basically says that you can't use zoning to prohibit religious institutions, educational institutions, daycare centers, and the like. So if you think as to why that happened and how it's perceived now, Dover doesn't have a lot of credibility with the state. We've got 2.82% of housing, that's 40B. You know, we go back decades to a not inclusionary approach that resulted in the Dover Amendment. So Dover doesn't have a lot, that doesn't get a lot of sympathy up on Beacon Hill, and that's part of the problem. So I think there's absolutely no harm in chatting with Denise about all this. But until Dover gets to its 10% of 40B housing, it's a very uphill climb for us to convince Mass Housing that a particular development is not appropriate.
So how does Trout Brook look then? Because I saw on the agenda that Trout Brook is also positive. Is it, and actually, if you don't mind me asking, is it the same builder by any chance?
No,
Yes.
it is not.
Yeah, it is.
No,
It's not the same builder? I just heard yes, it is, and now it's not?
who
It's
said yes,
not-
it is?
Okay. Oh, I don't know. I thought I heard someone said yes, it is.
No, I did, Norma Sullivan. I heard it was, I've been told
not.
it was the same builder.
It's not. It's not.
Okay.
It's not.
And
So,
what
so let
is
me
the-
let me explain the
Can you
difference,
tell us
Cheryl, if I may.
Who is the builder for Tisdale LLC?
Well, it's Pat McGovern.
Okay.
I mean, Paul McGovern,
Paul
who's a partner
McGovern.
with Pat
And Pat
Corrigan.
Corrigan.
Right. It's basically the same folks that are
Right.
doing the Robin. So Trout Brook is a little bit different because it's 4 individual lots in which they would build 4 individual homes, one of them being 40B. And the reason they're going through 40B is because the property is so wet that under zoning bylaws in the town of Dover and wetland bylaws in the town of Dover, those properties would never be allowed to be built upon. But with 40B, you have to meet the state requirements, not the Dover requirements, and our Dover requirements on things like wetlands and stuff are much more severe. So that's 40B. It raises a bigger issue of allowing a developer to take 4 lots that aren't necessarily contiguous and say that they're going to use one as a 40B. That's a long-term issue that we'll be pursuing with town council as well. But the issues relative to Tisdale are totally different.
So other than Tisdale LLC, the potential of Trout Brook, and then, correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't there something about next to the high school?
Yeah, so Pulte Homes, which is a national home builder, sort of like Toll Brothers, maybe you've heard of them. They have an agreement with the property owner at on Junction Street between the Dover-Sherburne Regional School campus and the Medfield line on the school side to build somewhere around 100 units of housing. They are going through the process, but we don't know what it's going to be yet. They started the process back in August. The town is involved with them. There is a tremendous amount of wetlands on the property. And at the Conservation Commission meeting next week, the Conservation Commission will be approving the official designation of the wetland boundaries. So at that point, Pulte will know exactly where they can build. At the same time, they need to do some soil testing to see if they can find a place for septic systems and, of course, for water. Medfield Board of Selectmen voted a couple of weeks ago not to deny a request by Pulte to use Medfield water and Medfield sewer. So we don't know yet whether Pulte is going to come back to us after the Medfield denial and after the wetlands, which was much more extensive than most people thought, and say, we're pulling out, doesn't make sense, or we're going to downsize, or we want to work with you on multifamily housing or MBTA communities housing or 40B housing. We don't know that yet. We will probably the next 30 to 60 days. So
And the
Dover is being looked at now as a very popular area for development. And we, the Dover bubble of single family homes on lots of acreage of land has burst. And that's why the Housing Task Force that was mentioned earlier has been created, so that we can make sure that not only do we address the individual issues that developers come up with, but that we do it proactively with the philosophy that makes sense for the town of Dover.
And Carol, if I might also ask, so the wetlands that are behind those two houses on Tisdale Drive that go back towards, not near Schaffner, but towards Schaffner, those don't have any impact on a builder building 42 units?
They have an impact in the sense that,
even by 40B standards?
So 40B standards require that state law be used. Is John Sullivan still on?
Yep, still here.
John, can you explain that a little bit better?
Sure.
John, for those that don't know, John is also chair of the Conservation Commission.
Hi, John.
Hi, everyone. So I'm here as a resident as well. And also I'm just reciprocating Carol's gracious presence at our meetings. So I thought I'd sit in. So we share some frustration that planning board and other boards share when it comes to 40B. And like what I'm hearing here, the general tenure of the board is not anti-40B. But in this situation, the frustration we have is like at Red Robin, we have control over the 100-foot buffer from a wetland. The state has control of, gives us that control, but in many other parts of the state, under state regulations, they can allow construction up to 25 feet away from a wetland, whereas we don't allow new construction within 70 feet of a wetland. And so consequently, there's a wall at Red Robin, I think is in the general area around 40 feet away from a wetland there. We would not have approved that under our regulations, but we were in essence required to allow it, or the state basically supersedes us on that. When it came, and we run into the same thing when it's over at Chickering and Troutbrook, where they're looking at putting a septic system within 50 feet of a wetland, and the town requires a 100-foot separation there, and the state supersedes that, and they also supersede the height above a water table. All the things that we use to ensure our water quality, and the state believes that 40B trumps that. So I had, and then also we've run into that with Pulte, and I thought Carol did a great job of explaining that, is that we don't know what Pulte wants to do there. They're basically doing their due diligence to figure out what they can do with the land. That formal declaration or approval of the wetland delineation line, which was changed with our outside consultant to expand it a little bit. That looks like it would require them to cross a wetland to get to a certain portion of that property. Not impossible, but it could be a roadblock to Pulte, and we'll see what they come up with. I had a question, Carol. During the negotiation process, which board handles negotiating relative to density and unit sizes for these units? Do you know who that?
So if it's a 40B application, which this one is for Tisdale, it's totally under the authority of the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Okay, because what I'm hearing from some of the residents is that size certainly seems disproportionate. Density, I thought in one of the documents that were submitted relative to the 40B that the 3-bedroom units, quite a few number of them, somewhere I picked up the idea that they were looking at feedback from Mass Housing that they wanted more family units. And I don't know if I made that up or if that's actually part of that. And I wonder if on the opposite end, obviously, if, looking to downsize density, but also looking at a 55 plus situation where I think there's also a housing need, which have, may be incorporated into some of the negotiation there, just as a thought.
No, it's an excellent point, John. And, I didn't mention in our theoretical toolbox of housing options, 40B, MBTA communities, multifamily, standard subdivision. I forgot to mention the 55, the age restricted housing and so forth. These are all the things that the Housing Task Force will be looking at from a policy standpoint. And they're things that the Zoning Board of Appeals will be discussing with the developer as well. Assuming Mass Housing approves this.
Carol, earlier you had said that the Dover planning obviously does not address water issues. And you were going to bring up my concerns about the water being shut off last month for literally about 18 to 24 hours. So my question is, what department? I understand that Aquarian Water is a private water company, but does the town have any regulation? And if so, which department does? Like, how would we find out the answer as to why the water was shut off?
Okay, so let me say a couple things, both as a past selectman and as a past member of the Water Study Committee. Public water supply company like Aquarian or Colonial before that, okay, needs to be viewed as just another public utility. In other words, if your electricity goes out, who do you call?
Oh,
right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Eversource.
Exactly. So water is the same way. When your water goes out, you call Aquarian. They are just another utility in town. Dover, the town of Dover is actually, just like you, a customer of Aquarian. Aquarian provides.
I respect what you're saying.
So but just a minute. So,
sure.
But because of the significance in a town where, a third of the town is getting its water from Aquarian, because of that significance, the town has developed an excellent relationship with Aquarian. And I think once Aquarian acquired Colonial Water, the ability of the town of Dover to discuss all these issues, totally valid issues, Cheryl, with Aquarian as a customer, but on behalf of residents of Dover as well, I think improved dramatically, from what I understand. I am not a user of Aquarian. I have my own well. Basically, you need to think of them as just another utility. But the town administrator in the Board of Selectmen's office at this point in time is the focal point for the town's relationship with Aquarian. Okay. So I would, there's never any harm in Mike's gonna hate me for this. There's never any harm in communicating with our town administrator.
Right. Oh, no, and he's been wonderful. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I also think, and I do understand what you're saying as far as, the water is considered just like any other utility. But the difference is that, our water, our electricity, I mean, short of like a storm or something happening, we all have electricity.
Right. No, I get it.
We all can heat our homes with gas or oil or however, but the water is depleting and is in disarray right now because of the quality of the water, the manganese, the color. I mean, you name it, the list goes on and on and on.
I know.
And so, when they hook up electricity to Red Robin, the lights are going to go on. But
I get it.
That's not going to affect my home when I put my lights on.
Right.
But the water will.
It's not going to affect you taking a shower or washing your clothes.
Correct.
I get it.
Or my whites being brown.
I get it. And I can assure you that the issue of water is probably one of the top 5 issues that's going to be reported to Mass Housing as well.
Okay. Thank you.
I promise you that.
Okay. Can I ask one little question? You said Medfield for the development near Farm Street. I'm more curious, are there any advantages or disadvantages that we do have this privatized water company that even the town is a client of versus like when Walpole said no to Red Robin or Medfield said, no, we don't want to put them on the town water system? Do you have more strength when the town does own the water and isn't a client? Or does it help that this is a private company that will have to come in and evaluate it?
So we could spend a couple of hours discussing water. So
Sorry, but did my question make sense?
Yes, absolutely. And I'm so just very briefly, and then I think we'll need to move on. But very briefly, you have private wells, you have a private water supply like Aquarian, you have public water supplies like Medfield and Westwood. You have public electrical supply companies like Wellesley gets their electricity through Wellesley Electric or whatever they call themselves. So there are all kinds of variations on how utilities are handled by the different towns and cities. You know, certainly if we had our own system, then just like the Medfield Board of Selectmen did the other day, they denied a request to use it. So yes, to your point, yes, there would be more control. That being said, Aquarian does have to live by a license that was given to them by the state to operate their system. And there are specific numbers there of gallons that they're allowed to pull and so forth and so on. So there's control there, but it's done by the state, not by the town. And the state told us, the Water Study Committee several years ago, that they know that there's an issue, but they don't have the manpower to deal with a very small water supply company like Colonial or Aquarian. So that's the issue that the town's working on. So, Sean, okay, Sean, last question.
Yeah, I almost hesitate because it is water related. If politics and all the other issues aside, if the state, as you just said, acknowledged that there's an issue, but we can't handle it, Aquarian says we can't handle it, Dover says you can't handle it, is there any state appeal process or legal process to say all the parties involved in this say it can't be done from the water perspective?
Right.
And just use that as a lever to appeal to, I'm not sure what the state, or if it's MWRA or who it is, but
you're breaking up a little bit, Sean. So part of the process, for instance, Red Robin, and you can find it on the Dover website for the Red Robin development under the Board of Appeals. There's a list of 20 or 30 different documents that were part of the process to develop the comprehensive permit. There's a letter there from Aquarian, which officially informs both the town of Dover and the developer, and also obviously the state, that they can commit to supplying water to Red Robin. Now, if Aquarian cannot commit to supplying water to Tisdale 2, then that's a whole different story. But I'm not sure that we're at that point yet.
Okay.
But that too, that again, the whole issue of water, it's not only the quality of the water, it's the quantity of the water, and it will be raised in the package of material that goes from Dover to Mass Housing. Promise you. So with that, I can't thank you all enough. I hope you've learned a little bit as well. We certainly have learned an awful lot from you. And I think that, the key is to keep engaged. And we will try to do the same and make sure that you're all aware of what's going on. And if at any point you have an issue and a specific question, don't hesitate to reach out to any of the planning board members or to our town planner, Jasmine Farinacci, and she will help you get whatever answers you need. Thank you all very much for coming.
Thank you all.
Really appreciate it.
All right, good night.
Okay, good night. Okay, Jasmine. So if we go back to our fiscal year 24 initiatives, I think we've handled a few of them already.
Absolutely. So we've definitely Handled Pulte. We did touch briefly on MBTA. I reached out with Jeff Davis to schedule a meeting with him, myself, and Jody about next steps since we've extended his contract. And then Nina, and then 53G status, we reached out to town council. Nina says she has draft language for us. She's working on it. She'll get it to us in the next few weeks. So that was excellent. Very grateful for her for that.
And I just, does anybody need to know more about what 53G is? I think we had discussed it the other night. Okay, 53G gives us the opportunity when we have a development in front of us to get an outside consultant to help us go through the process and have the developer pay for it, which the Conservation Commission does on certain things and the ZBA does on 40B developments. But we have nothing in our bylaws right now that allow Dover to do that. And one of the questions I have also is, does the MBTA Communities Act give the planning board approval through 53G? I don't know the answer to that. I'm sure Jeff will. Okay, sorry, Jasmine.
Oh, no worries at all. So then technology and communication, just touch really briefly on this. So I did actually reach out to Mike and Felicia in town hall, and they both said they are comfortable with me taking over the planning board webpage. And so it's just a matter of getting me an access. So they have my email. I just need a password and access to that, and just go over with Felicia how she would like to be kept up to date on whatever it is that I'm doing on the website. Because obviously it's important that the town clerk remain updated on what we're doing. So we're working on that internally. Hopefully we'll have a process in place in the next 2 weeks. It's going to, I think, improve the transparency to the public. It's going to improve our ability to get things up in a timely manner. It's going to improve our ability to just really mold the website to its best use for the board. You'll be able to make requests, and it's a very, very simple platform. It's very easy for me to use. So it's immediate. As soon as you ask for something, it can be done. So I think it's going to be a great step forward for the board. And I think it'll be nice to take just a little bit of something off Felicia's plate. So I believe she still technically has to post all of our agendas. I don't think I can do that for her, unfortunately, due to the way the laws are. I think I still have to have her post our agendas, but other than that, I think she can be hands off. I know Sue is still working on digitizing old files. She's been scanning them in, naming them, filing them away. I have not heard anything else on online permitting, Carol. I don't know if you...
Yeah, so when the Board of Selectmen this summer sent out their draft fiscal year 24 goals to the various boards and committees and departments for input, all the land use departments, Conservation Commission, Board of Health, Planning Board, Walter as well, his building inspector, all said we need online permitting. So the selectmen heard us. It's on their list. There's no specific funding for fiscal year 24. So I know Mike is looking into it. I would hope that it's going to be something that we can get in, maybe by next summer. It really depends on where they find the funding, as well as the processes. You can't put in an online system until you understand the processes that are used in the permitting in its entirety. And right now, as we know from some of our frustrations when we get site plan reviews, who goes first? Is it the Board of Health locating a septic system? Or is it the Conservation Commission looking at wetlands? When does the planning board get it? So all that sort of stuff has to be worked out from a process standpoint within the townhouse. And I think the online permitting process will force us to address this issue that's been a little bit problematic for us. So I think it's a good way to it's a twofer. We get online permitting and we actually get a process too, but it may take a bit of time.
I feel, Carol, like in other towns, and I'd be happy to dig into this a little bit separately, but I feel like there's an off-the-shelf solution to that problem.
There is.
Yeah.
There is. And Mike Blanchard, as town administrator, implemented one in his previous position. I know that Jasmine has been involved with it. You know, it's interesting. I was doing some exploration on the website today, and under there was a comment in the one of the forms, one of the procedures that said no applications will be accepted digitally. Everything has to be done by paper, basically. And then you go to Needham, which says no application will be submitted in paper. It's all got to be done digitally. So we are, again, so far behind the times on this, but I do think it's going to happen in our lifetime.
Yeah.
So one other thing about the website. So there are two things, and we're just so fortunate that Jasmine knows this stuff backwards and forwards. One is that, you know, obviously she needs to clean it up, but for those of you that have ownership of some of our initiatives, there'll be content that needs to be built.
Yeah.
So if you just all sort of add that up as you're thinking about how we communicate everything that we're doing. We now have web pages that we can use for every one of our initiatives, but that'll require, you know, some thoughtful comment and content. So, okay, back to you, Jasmine.
So, town meeting, we are waiting graciously for Mike Blanchard to provide us with a timeline for a town meeting. As soon as I have that, I'm just going to sort of put our initiatives into it and send that off to you guys for review. And then let's see. Sorry, that brings us to our bylaw changes. So the accessory dwelling unit bylaw, as we know, there's no actionable items at this time. We're just waiting until November 18th. And then we have a construction hours bylaw.
So excuse me for a second, Jasmine.
Sure.
There actually is a actionable item on the ADU because it can be done in parallel, and that's the development of the regulations and the process for the ADU.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Which we have a draft of.
So if you could, Jasmine, Jody did a lot of work on that over the last couple of years, so you can just work with her on it, but it would be nice to have it ready to go.
Absolutely.
Jasmine, I think that should be in Laura Harbottle's files because we worked on that with her and also with Walter just before she left. And it can be a good just start, you know, we don't have to start from scratch.
Right, right. Okay. So I can have that just sort of, Jody, I don't know if you want to touch base over the next week so that way we can just get like a brief update together for the October 30th meeting.
Great.
Perfect. Thank you. And then, so we have a construction hours bylaw that was drafted and sent out to the board, and there are just a few edits to that. I'm gonna stop sharing so I can. So one of them I sent out this afternoon, so I apologize for the late send out, but.
So let me ask everybody a question. Have you all had a chance to look at the construction bylaw draft?
I
Because
didn't have a chance to look at the more recent one. I'm not sure how it differs from the earlier one.
Right.
And
And
it was this edition right here.
Pretty easy. Okay, got it.
So the addition was exemptions for to work and municipal work.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's kind of interesting though, isn't it, that F2 is sort of the heart of the of the issue, but I mean, it makes total sense. We have to have the ability to get projects like that complete.
yeah, I mean, you don't want to be putting these constraints on municipal projects.
No, we can't.
It's
No.
going
We'll have a whole nother set of complaints because we'll close
increase the
roads,
cost and it's going to delay things. And the fact of the matter is that most of the municipal projects are not within residential areas.
Right.
You know, other than road stuff. So Jasmine, do you want to go through the points that we need to make some decisions on?
Absolutely. So the first part would be, obviously the hours and the fines. So there are a lot of options here. There's a lot of different communities that Scott pulled from. Scott did an awful lot of work on this. So thank you so much, Scott. He really put the majority of this together. And, most towns do, he obviously has a proposed 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. based on a median of what other towns and communities are doing. And he's proposed fines of a first offense of $100, a second offense of $200, and a third offense of $300, broken up within a 12-month period. So it expressly states within the fines how you would be charged from 100 to 200 or 200 to 300, what constitutes the increase of the fine. So does anybody have...
fine? Just out of curiosity, who's the fine collecting body?
Oh, we'll get to that in a minute.
Good question, Jody.
It sort of goes along with the sign bylaw and who enforces it, right?
Yeah. The kangaroo court.
Yeah. Let's talk about times and days first. So what do folks think? 7 to 7?
Yeah, that seems reasonable. One thing I think is interesting is to have maybe something shortened on Sundays. I really do think that.
Oh, I wouldn't allow anything on Sundays. Days was going to be my next question.
Okay. I was sort of thinking the same, but I didn't want to go too far. But seems to me like we don't want to let this be a 7-day free for all.
Right. I mean, there are towns that don't do Saturdays, I believe. So
no, there are towns that
they reduce
don't
the
do
hours.
Sundays.
Right.
3 of the towns have the same hours across all days, and then 4 of the towns, as you can see, have different weekend hours or exclude Sundays altogether.
Yep.
Like Winchester.
So let's break this down then. So on a Monday through Friday standpoint, is there a consensus on 7 to 7? Yes.
Yes.
9 p.m. just seems late to me.
Oh, forget 9
for
p.m.
sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
I think 7 to 7 is fine.
Yeah.
So then the question is Saturdays. How do people feel about hours on Saturdays?
I don't know.
I think, go ahead, Jody.
Go ahead, Val, go ahead.
I'm just thinking maybe on Saturdays, 8 would be the earliest I would recommend, only because the school district actually recently went through a change in school time so that teens could sleep in for their health, for their mental health. And so I think on the weekends, that's really important. That tends to be when a lot of folks try to catch up on sleep. So I would just encourage starting at or after 8 a.m. to give everyone a little more time on the weekend.
Yeah, I like that thought.
Yeah, I'd be fine with 9, frankly, but 8, I guess.
Yeah, and I think a shortened day too, personally.
Yeah, Winchester's 9 to 5.
I think 9 to 5 is right as far as I'm concerned. But
Concord and Natick are 8 to 6.
All right, I think
I like 9 to 5.
9 to 5. Okay. So we have 7 to 7 Monday through Friday, and Saturday 9 to 5. Okie doke.
Sorry, you said nothing on Sunday, right?
Nothing on Sunday.
Thank you.
Are there other specific issues? Jasmine,
One of the things that stood out to me with construction is delivery of items. So, for example, especially when foundations are being built or large grading is happening, sometimes there can be delivery of stone, of dirt, things like that, that can also be really loud when you have these huge dump trucks coming, and the the gate slams shut. And I just remember us having that here in on Haven Terrace when multiple homes were being built. So that might be something that we want to talk about is, does this include delivery, or how do you kind of put that into the definition?
Sorry, Jasmine, do we want to keep those in case we get questioned on it at town meeting down the line? Okay, thanks.
I couldn't agree with you more, Val. I had a note here that this didn't address trucks. And in
Well,
fact,
it says operating any type of construction machinery, so it depends on it. And it mentions idling trucks and earth moving equipment and
Yeah, I
materials
think that
handling.
the intent would be for any related noises to be prohibited during these hours. So I think that would include deliveries.
okay, then maybe, where is that specifically?
In B there, yeah.
The,
Idling trucks.
I think trucks, okay, yep.
This might be a stretch, but would somebody ask you, what about landscapers? I know that's like not the same.
I was a little worried about that myself, but
so
I just think we should have an answer.
That's not construction machinery though.
So
loud and annoying though, like the leaf blowers especially, right?
Right,
Yeah,
it's a separate topic, but I just feel like for this particular bylaw, we might want to be very clear. Because
Yeah.
we say including things, but not limited to idling trucks,
me.
blah, 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 and then anything powered by internal combustion or diesel engine. And I'm like, oh, what about the guys with the backpacks?
So what about the roosters and what about the dogs? This is not a noise bylaw.
That's what I mean. Like, I would just say, we not try to make it one, and we tighten it so that it's very, like, we alleviate that doubt, because otherwise you're absolutely right. Totally agree with you.
Why it's called a construction bylaw, and certainly I think that's an excellent point for Scott when he presents this at town meeting.
But I think we want to make sure for the avoidance of doubt, because maybe, a lot of people get agitated by that stuff, the leaf blowers.
I mean, do we want to talk, like, do we actually want to do something about that, or?
No.
I mean,
That's a
personally,
whole
I think
other
we have
animal.
enough on our
Why don't
plate.
we, Carol? Do we want to?
Because we have 5 huge initiatives.
Yeah, too much.
Okay, you think it's too much? Okay.
Yeah, I think we have too much on our plate.
We have too much on our plate, and we're keeping a list and making it nice. But we have got to focus, guys, on these things that we've agreed to focus on. It's too easy to get diverted because these things all take time.
Totally
And
agree.
you've also got the politics of it. Is that
Yeah, exactly. I just feel like we start down the road of noise, and we got
Exactly.
other things we care a lot about.
Right, so we got every dog owner, complaining that the planning board's trying to get rid of their dogs because they can't go outside and bark. I mean, it goes on and on, right? So,
Slippery stuff. I get it. Yep.
Carol, can I?
I think
this is
maybe
John.
what you do, because I think these are great, in one moment, John.
Okay.
I think, but the discussion about this is a good idea. I think, maybe the objective that's on the top of the page just needs to be strengthened a little bit and focused on the construction aspect. Maybe an extra sentence or two. Maybe Scott and Jasmine, you can work on that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey, John, thank you. What you got?
Just a quick thing to add. So it's recently come up in conservation about the pollution, both noise and carbon pollution of landscaping equipment. So we won't have anything ready for the next for the upcoming town meeting, but it may be something for the boards to discuss among us, because we may be able to pick that weight up on a conservation basis and propose something there, because we do get complaints on it, and the pollution aspects are something like running a leaf blower for an hour was equivalent of having a pickup truck cross the country on 50 times or something. So I just wanted to give you that as a point of information, let you know that we will be looking into that as well.
Great.
And that way we could take some of the stress off you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. The team at work. It's great.
That's going to be a tough one to tackle. So I think good luck on that one. But
It was brought up by several commissioners. I said, we'll have to be ginger with it. So
reality can step in on that, I think. But okay.
yeah, no, but I think it's building. It's actually, and at the same time, all the electrical supplied ones are getting much more powerful. So we'll see.
That's great. We're taking a very similar approach, John, in the work that Val started with the tree committee.
Mm-hmm.
And, we had a consultant come in, we had a great report, and there, 30, 40, 50 items that were suggested. And Val is working very closely with Kevin McCabe, because Kevin's doing a new stormwater bylaw.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And of course, modern stormwater regulations are both mechanical infrastructure and natural. So we're trying to get some of the natural stormwater possibilities in this bylaw.
We used Audubon for a couple projects. They actually have their own consultants for wet meadows and things of that sort. That was very helpful. So we're more than willing to share that as well. And the tree, it was clear that with Val, the tree bylaw was baby steps to get people used to it, and yet we're dealing with a major tree cutting issue, and we're trying to figure out how to actually apply it, because we don't have enough space to properly replant everything, and so we're looking at our options there. So I'm going to sign off and let everyone finish up with the fun stuff.
Well, John, thank you so much for coming tonight, and really appreciate your input. Thanks so much.
It was great. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. It's amazing the synergies when you start talking to folks in the townhouse and other boards and committees. Just have to keep doing that. Anything else about this bylaw draft?
So this highlighted sentence right here that says construction shall not include work performed by a property owner on his or her own property and not for compensation. That was Walter's only comment, was that he was very concerned with what that might open him up to. Other than that, he said he didn't really have any comments on it. I'll send it to him with the revisions that we've made so far. But other than that, I would just like to go through the 2 additions that I put through that the board maybe didn't have a lot of time to review. I don't know if you'd like me to read this, if you'd like to each read this on your own for a second. Is it large enough?
Yeah. So again, I would just let's make sure that we use the right terminology to serve. So it's I would say the Department of Public Works, not the Highway Department Superintendent, which you have in F2. I mean, most of the bylaws that Scott found, those are the obvious exemptions, right? Public work and emergencies.
Yep. And should town manager be town administrator?
Yep.
Is there any carve out to, I'm just asking the question, how, for example, educational organizations or religious or various, not that many, but there's limited exemptions to some of the limitations we place. Does that factor into this at all? Just curious. Like, for example, if construction was happening at the Charles River School.
Well, when the planning board did the site plan review for Charles River School, they actually had construction times in it.
Was the Charles River School required to adhere to that?
Yes, if I remember correctly. Jasmine, do you have any insight into that?
I've always, in my experience, restricted those types of projects in the decision.
Yeah. Gotcha.
I've never had a church come before me, so I can't speak to if they have further exemptions under Dover Act. I wouldn't
Right.
I wouldn't think so. I think if they still need a site plan review, they would still have to adhere, so.
I feel like I'm just misremembering that site plan for the Charles River School. But for some reason, what is it, Carol, that I'm remembering about the fact that they were exempt from a lot of oversight by virtue of being an educational institution?
Well, they weren't exempt from oversight by the various inspectors in town, God knows.
Right.
But maybe signage, for instance.
Maybe that's it. Okay. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah,
but
I
I
think it
remember
was-
there was something, so I was just curious.
Maybe it was signage. Yep.
Okay, thanks.
I do have a broad question to raise. You know, I know that from a legal standpoint, you know, ignorance of the law is no excuse. But as we all know, the understanding of a normal town resident on our rules, regulations, bylaws, processes, procedures, government structure, you name it, is pretty low. And most folks only know what goes on in town and how to do something when they need to do it. So my concern is that I'm just wondering, I'll throw this out, that before we do a first fine, that we issue a warning. Not dissimilar to the bylaw that we did for the sprinkler systems during a drought.
Or we could our site plan reviews, or it could be part of our process that the applicant is made aware of this bylaw.
Well,
I mean,
the vast majority of the bylaw, the vast majority of projects that get implemented by like that bylaw, this bylaw, we will never see. It's individual homes.
right, but somebody's approving them.
Walter,
Right. So why can't that be part of Walter's sort of packet?
because Walter has to adhere to the bylaw. So if the bylaw doesn't give the opportunity for a warning,
No, I'm just saying notification. I mean, I don't care if we have a warning either, so we can move right off the topic. I don't feel strongly about it, but it's just, to me, like if you get a building permit for anything or a permit, you get this, it
Oh,
comes with, don't
Yeah.
forget, here's our bylaw.
that's already in here. That's under, Jasmine, you added that, right?
Let's see.
We talked about that the other day.
Yes, I believe I did, but maybe not in this version. Let
So
me-
we had, to your point, Jody, that any
Yes,
building
here,
permit,
sorry.
there it is. Yep.
Oh, there we go. That's like, seems reasonable, but whatever. Warning's fine too, because most of the time you're right. It's not because somebody's trying to be a jerk. It's just they don't know.
Right. So if it's okay with everybody, we'll ask Jasmine to put in under penalties, a first warning.
Sure.
I'll expand that. So. And then
So
this
do you-
last bit we'll have to go over with Walter as well, just because this goes over who is responsible and who is enforcing it. So I'd really like to speak with Walter and the acting police chief about that. So I don't want to catch anybody off guard with this. I want to make sure that we're all under the understanding what this is about and when and who might be enforcing what at what times of day and under what circumstances. And if maybe we need to include that in here. If that's the police chief's preference, that's fine. But I just think that's a conversation I need to have with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, and Todd Wilcox, I believe, is our interim chief of police. He may want to defer until a new police chief comes in, which is fine, because that's just making a quick change before next May. So we've got time for that.
One
But
thing
yeah,
that
that, for instance, like with the bylaw for the sprinkler systems during a drought, the DPW is the responsible organization for people to report and then for issuing the fines.
One other thing to think about with enforcement is are we talking about enforcement per project? Or, so for example, if you have subcontractors who are doing work in multiple places in Dover, right? So, and they have a violation on one property, but maybe not on another. And then maybe 6 months later, they're working on another project and then there's a violation, right? So I guess I'm just wondering, is it by project or is it in total?
The way it's written
Oh,
right
it's
now, by permit.
I'm sorry. And it's
permit.
the property owner who has to pay, so I would think it's not fair that a property owner be subject to an increased penalty because of a contractor was cited at another property.
Mhm.
So
Right.
I think it should
So
be
by
by property.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Jasmine, the clause that Walter took issue with was pulled from the Winchester language. Do we want to talk about this? Like, do we want to be regulating what property owners are doing? For example, like if I'm erecting a shed, should I be forced to comply with the hours? Personally, like I would think I should have to comply. But
I think, yes, the short answer, right? Because
yeah.
I mean, the construction is construction. If we're defining it as any building preparation, it's different. I think it's different than if it's like we talked about landscaping, or if it's, snow blowing your driveway or something like that. But yeah, if you're doing construction, I think you still have to comply with the hours, because it's still a burden on your neighbors, right? That's kind of what the whole thing is about, is the burden on those around you.
Yeah, so I'd be supportive of just striking this altogether.
Yeah, I agree. I think in spirit, it makes sense that the homeowner should be held to the same standard as the professional he hires. The only consideration, as you've mentioned, is the sticky wicket of it getting expanded beyond, him mowing his lawn or something. But we've been pretty clear that this is not going to be for that. So I'm okay getting rid of it.
I'll also remind everybody that once we have a draft, that it's going to go around the town, and the selectmen and Walter again, and we'll have to hold a public hearing and stuff. So
I would say the pushback we're going to get to that is that for people who want to do a home improvement project on their own and who work during the week that would be the people who would push back on this, because it would make it very, very difficult to get that done. So I support taking it out, but I think we should be prepared to have
a home improvement project. I would think falls outside of the scope of what we've defined here, right?
We're not building a shed.
Like
somebody who's, I can think of, I remember years ago, a homeowner who lives right on Central Avenue, who put their own septic system in and worked all week and got permits.
Well, in that case, like, should we consider designating a very narrow period of time on Sundays where people could do this? Like, for example, noon to 6 or noon to 5 or something like that?
So I'm sorry, go ahead, Bill.
Well, I think the distinction here is that it's not that we're prohibiting people from doing construction around their property. And that's perfectly fine. I think what the point that was being raised is that as a courtesy, if a homeowner is making excessive noise and is disruptive to their neighbors, then they should have the courtesy to, not make noise. And if they take advantage of that and abuse that requirement, then I think they should be subject to penalty.
Unavoidable though. So like hammering a nail, you can't do that quietly.
No, but I don't think that rises to the level of, I think what we're talking about. I don't think having contractors in their yard banging hammers is necessarily going to rise to the level of a violation. I think it's machinery and equipment and much louder type of work that's taking place. I would find it annoying if someone's, I don't know, maybe we all have different opinions, but
I think there are going to be different standards. What I would propose that we all consider is, if we're going to include homeowners on this regulation, that we designate a portion of Sundays during which they can do what they need to do, per Jody's point. Particularly because if you look around at the other towns, Jasmine, if you wouldn't mind scrolling up, please. Up, other direction. Yep. They all allow Sundays with the exception of Winchester.
Another approach is to put something in here, and and again, I'm sorry, it might be in here already, or maybe I saw it in one of the other bylaws that were included in the package, but that at the discretion of the building inspector. The times can be changed. I worry, I mean,
I think we should
have. We tend to get into the weeds in these things, and we're trying to address a general issue, and now we're into 2 pages already. And the more stuff you put in, the more people are going to object.
We're not putting more stuff in. We're just designating time on Sundays where people can do it. Which is
what we decided that we didn't want to do anything on Sundays.
What's that?
But we decided we didn't want to do anything on Sundays.
Well, what I'm saying is we should allow for people to do things on Sundays in the scenario that Jody outlined, particularly if we're holding homeowners to the same standard as contractors, because we removed that clause that Walter didn't like. I think that we should designate time on Sundays for this work to be done. I think that's the reasable compromise.
I think that's what I think. Case, but I still think it's a realistic scenario. And I think I just always think about these things as, well, what are going to be some typical or likely complaints we get?
Yeah, I don't want to overregulate. I don't think it's our position to be overregulating. We're trying to help solve a problem, but we're not interested in overregulating. And I think people should be allowed to do stuff on Sundays.
Sunday, 12 to 5, 12 to 7.
So once you've taken out that clause about the property owners, then there's nothing in here about then the whole thing is written as if you're talking about construction companies, right?
No, the property owners, that they're exempt, and now we're including them in construction.
I think the conflict is that we're holding the property owners responsible, right? Like that's
No,
we're mixing up a bunch of issues.
Yeah, we're talking right now, Val, we're talking about property owners being held to the same standards as these contractors. And I'm saying that if we're going to do that, then let's give people the opportunity to get their work in on Sundays in the event that they're working all week and they don't have the time or opportunity.
I think that's reasonable, because property owners may be licensed contractors who are doing their own decks or patios on the weekends or something.
Let's say Sunday 12 to 5, something like that. Like, is that okay?
I'm going to play devil's advocate for a second. We have a lot of contractors who live in Dover. Does that mean they could bring in equipment from their company site and use heavy equipment on Sunday, just because they happen to be a contractor and not paying anybody other than themselves?
Yes.
My neighbor already does and is.
Yeah. It already happens.
I don't care if it's during sort of normal hours, but we're trying to stop it. We're trying to stop in the spirit of this, as we don't want it happening at 6 o'clock in the morning, or 7 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday, or 12 to 5. Scott, I think to me makes sense, but
yeah, and it can be anything, like whatever you guys think is fair, but I just think we should give homeowners some time on Sundays to do projects.
The other nice thing about giving people that extra time is that these projects presumably could get finished a little faster, which is what everybody wants. Not just homeowners, neighbors.
Make the misery end faster.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
No idea how true that is.
Okay, so
Frankly,
Anything else?
homeowners aren't home on Saturdays and Sundays anyways. They're all out at the soccer fields and the baseball
Exactly.
fields.
I don't think it's, I think it's an edge case, as I said. But I think it's a nice way to avoid looking elitist, to be honest.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Anything else for Jasmine on this? Okay, Jasmine, you know what needs to be done? So Jasmine had sent out a whole bunch of other ones. Obviously, we're not going to get them all tonight. Why don't we plan on looking at the solar array for the 30th, the meeting on the 30th?
Great.
And I know that Bill and George and Jasmine are still doing a lot of work on the village center stuff, so that'd be whenever that is.
Thanks, Scott, for all that work. That's cool. I don't think I've ever seen a bylaw pulled together so fast.
Thank you all for the input. This will be good if we can get this done, is all.
Scott pulled together all his research in a couple of hours.
That's amazing. Did ChatGPT do that for you?
I wish. I don't even know how to access it. That's how much of an old fart I am. Like I don't even where do I go?
Okay, Jasmine, where are we on our bylaws? Let's see. In our NRPZ.
Yeah.
So for NRPZ, we have our first meeting coming up with Jeff Lacey, us being Jody and Val. Thank you both so much for volunteering your time to sit on that meeting with us. So we're going to be meeting, I'm sorry, on the 18th at 10 a.m. So that's going to be our first conversation for the NRPZ grant. So I'm sure.
I just wanted to mention, and Val, I'm going to go back because I'm pretty sure I have in my files an older presentation from some years ago, and it might have been Jeff who gave the presentation about this very topic. And I'm going to just share that with you guys before, so you have a look at it. I guarantee you it won't be the same, but at least it might give you a little context if you don't. Val, I'm sure, Jasmine, you know about it, but Val, you may or may not. So I'll share that with you, just FYI.
And I was on the Dover Planning website today, and I noticed that we have a whole thing on open space residential design.
I think that might be what it used to be called.
Yeah, so you might want to take a look at what's actually already on the planning board website under initiatives or whatever it was. Yeah.
Excellent.
I think that was its old name, Carol.
Yes. Yeah. Right. Low impact.
Yeah, this is so funny. Yeah. OSR. This is. Yep. There's case studies.
Right.
Yeah. Wow. Lots of info.
That's
This is going
the
back
stuff
to 2019.
when we had what's her name from Mass Audubon come in.
Yeah.
Right, Heidi. Yep.
Okay, for the stormwater bylaw, I don't have any more updates since the last time, other than I've spoken with Mike Blanchard and just sort of informed him of the situation that we're waiting on John Gregory to compile comments. Mike said he was going to reach out to John to see which departments he said he was still needing comments for, to see if he couldn't give a little nudge so that way we can get that going. I'd like to reach out to Val, you might be aware. What is Kevin's timeline for this?
He said he wanted to present something at the 2024 town meeting in May.
Oh,
so
wow.
Time's ticking away.
Yes, absolutely. So that's definitely, if they'd like to get that on, that's pretty high importance that we see everybody's comments, you know, especially Mike Angieri and Janet Bowser. And I think even the board had substantive comments back in January. So we'd really like to see all of those incorporated. And I'm obviously going to need everybody's help since I wasn't at that meeting. And that's going to take some time for people to review. So, you know, Mike Blanchard is on that. He knows that we're under a time constraint. I'll just make him aware that, or I'll just let him know that it was for this town meeting. So hopefully that we'll hear from that soon. I hope. We've done everything we can do. So there's nothing for the board to do on that. And then as far as the town center bylaw, so we had a large draft that we sent to you, but we can review that either at the end of October or in the first meeting in November. When do you feel that would be the best time to review what Bill and George and I have been reviewing?
I think a lot of it depends on the progress you're making on some of the other issues.
Okay, absolutely.
You know, our plan, I believe, Bill, based on our conversation this morning, I believe we're not looking to do a bylaw at Maytown meeting. What we're looking to do is put some regulations in place.
Mhm.
So that gives us a little bit, in a way, it gives us a little bit more time, even though we know we have to get the regulations in place, so we get some guardrails. But I think it's more important that we get all the concepts that we want into the bylaws that we want to get to town meeting. Because once we have the concepts, then you and council can work on all the actual wording, Jasmine.
Yes.
We need to make sure that we get the bylaws, that like the conversation we just had about hours and some other stuff. So we need to get through those types of issues because we have a time constraint there.
Yes. Absolutely. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And also town council will be having office hours in the town hall once a month. They're trying to set that up. So Nina's always been very responsive. Not that I've needed her often, but it'll be nice to have her in-house for when we need her. We could always just plan to have things ready for the days that she's going to be there. And then as far as the bylaw diagnostics, I haven't heard back from Mike or Mona about the format of the draft RFP that I sent, so I'll follow up with them sometime this week. I know they've got a lot on their plate, so just sort of being the squeaky wheel, I guess. And then as far, obviously Hale, we've touched base on that, no town meeting for Hale. We submitted the tree inventory grant. We submitted our comments to the Board of Selectmen on October 4th for the Board of Selectmen roles and responsibilities. Ongoing improving communications with boards and committees, and the planning assistance grant that was awarded for the NRPC. And we have $12,000 in that grant, and then we have to spend $6,000 of planning board funds. So I'm reviewing that grant right now. So next time we meet, I'll have a better sense of what the timeline is for that, and then we can work with the timeline with Jeff Lacy when we meet with him on Wednesday, and I'll have that to present to the board next time we meet. And that sums up that for me.
A lot going on. My goodness.
Yep.
Hey, Carol.
Yes.
Was there, I'm looking back at your email that you forwarded me about floodplain.
Okay.
So
we're waiting for the maps.
The maps were delayed, right? They're going to be
Yeah.
post town meeting.
Sometime this winter, I think.
Uh,
December, January, February.
Norfolk is
So,
going to be.
but that's an excellent point, Scott. We need to add that, Jasmine, to the bylaw section.
It says that we learned from FEMA, the letter of final determination for Norfolk will be December 24, January 25. So the
24 and 25? Oh,
Yeah,
I
it's gonna
I
be-
missed that. Oh, it's a
Yeah.
whole year out.
Yeah, I know. I'm looking
Oh.
at the not.
Okay.
This is from you sent me this on 9/20.
Okay. Yeah,
and-
I remember the December and the January. I just got the years wrong.
yeah, it's December. I mean, maybe no. Is this no? It's not a typo. I don't think it's a typo. So, what does that mean? That will we just skip a year and
Yep.
not do anything
Right,
this year? Okay.
right. Because the only thing we had left was to accept the new maps. So
Yeah,
we don't-
Suffolk and Plymouth counties is December 23, January
Ah.
24.
Well, that's too bad. I was hoping that the new floodplain maps would be available to inform on the Trout Brook 40B. Okay. Interesting. So Jasmine, do you have any other updates?
I don't believe so.
Okay, I just have one. And that is that I wanted to try to avoid some of the issues we had last year with our bylaws going before the warrant committee. So I talked to Cam Hudson, who's the chair of the warrant committee this year. And he has 2 liaisons to the planning board. Marty Howard and Jerry Chen. I don't know either of them. Does anybody know them?
Jerry, he and I are on the education committee at the Dover Church.
Oh, okay, great. So I invited them. So we made the introductions. I invited them to today's meeting. And at one point, I noticed that there was somebody on with the initials of MLH, which could easily be Marty Howard. I wish I had known because I would have done an introduction. But the idea is to allow them to participate from the beginning as we go through the development of these bylaws, so they can better understand why we are where we are when we do our final draft. So if you have the opportunity, also Val, my sense was that there's not a lot of in-depth knowledge about how government even works or what the planning board does. So
I'll talk with
So are you
Jerry.
thinking, Carol, that we'll sort of assign each one of those two individuals to one or two of the bylaws?
No, I haven't had a chance to talk to either of them individually, and I don't know, and we didn't get into that level of detail when Cam and I spoke. I don't know whether they're tag teaming in case one can't make it, or whether they're both going to be responsible. So I'll have to double check. That's an excellent question. I'll double check
Great.
that.
Thank you.
Given the number of bylaws we have, it certainly would be nice. But then again, given that we tend to review all of them at meetings, it means both of them have to be. So I don't know. It'll be up to them.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, that'd be so helpful because that was such a particularly helpful process last year. Yeah. Great.
Anybody have anything else? I was trying to get by 9, not too bad, 9:07. Just a heads up, I'm going to be out of the country for the meetings of November 13th and 27, and Jody has graciously agreed to chair those. And I think that's where we are. This was a great meeting, great discussions.
Yeah, really good. That was great having all of those abutters on.
Yeah, a surprise, but great. I mean,
Yeah, I know. I feel like I have to go back and watch this meeting again, Carol, for a master class you led on 40B. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Jasmine and I spent an awful lot of time on that memo and that we sent up. I hope we've all had a chance to look at it. And I think it really hit everything that they had mentioned as well.
Yeah, it was a very good memo.
And I had the opportunity to spend some time up there with the resident last week before the final memo went out, which gave me some more information. Oh, here's a good one for you. So do you remember the easement bylaw that we had to pull at the last minute in May of 2022?
Yep.
Okay. So there was an easement on Draper Road. And it went from the first house on Draper Road in the backyard. So between the house, in the backyards of Draper Road and Schaffner. And it went all the way up to Route 109. And then we had an individual who lives in that first house who was very concerned because the easement actually goes literally right along his driveway, and he's got little kids. And Courtney's comment had been, well, if you worry about strangers coming down the easement, then call the police, which is one of the reasons we pulled the whole bylaw. Not a good answer for a parent who's concerned about their kids. Well, it ends up that when you look at the map that was presented on the PowerPoint, there's actually, that easement has a spur that goes up to county court. So that the county court folks don't have to walk on Route 109 for traffic safety issues in order to get to Draper Road to take a walk. Which is more of the concern. So we mentioned that in the letter because it's another opportunity for folks in Tisdale too to cross Tisdale Drive, walk onto the county court property. And, you know, it's all of maybe 50 feet long, that spur. And then they get to Draper Road to take their walks or walk the dog or have the kids ride bicycles or whatever. So that was, anyway, it was very interesting. I said, oh God, I remember that spur. It never dawned on me, but yeah. So that's where we are. And thank you all for all the work that you're doing with Jasmine. And Jasmine, thank you again. And our next meeting is October 30th. And we'll take it from there.
Super.
Do I have a
Thank you
motion?
all.
I'm gonna make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 9:10. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Yes. Okay, thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
You.
Thank you, Karen.
Bye.
Thank you.
Right.
Bye.
You-